Thank you for coming. I'm Jeff Magincola, the CEO of Coursera, and I'm here just to basically introduce the company. I figured there might be some questions, so I'll try to go fairly quickly through the slides and then take a little bit of Q&A if we have some. This has been talked about a lot. It's not a new concept, but people have been talking about the future of work and the future of learning converging. And the reason that this is happening is because fundamentally the world's changing very quickly. And because it's changing quickly, jobs are changing, skills are changing, and the roles that people play in doing those jobs are changing. And companies are realizing that they're going to have to upskill folks in order to keep them productive with the demands that the company really needs them to provide. And this has created a lot of emphasis on workplace learning, adult learning, which links right into higher education. There's a book that came out fairly recently from Thomas Friedman. It's Thank You for Being Late. I highly recommend it. And he talks about this, what he calls the age of accelerations, which is how quickly things are changing because of technology, because of globalization, and he also mentions climate change. And there's a little chart in the book that we reprinted here where he looks at two curves. One is technology, which is kind of exponential. The other one is human adaptability, which is how quickly humans can adapt over time to changes in their environments around them. And what he says is that we're here. We're at a point where the rate of change of technology is outpacing the ability for humans to keep up with this. Things like data, things like compute power, artificial intelligence, increasingly robotics, and I would say especially social media, and the way that people communicate, the way they influence each other, the way they create ideas and beliefs and mobilize people is happening in a way that we have not been accustomed to. So at Coursera, we often think about kind of bending the curve, using education so that that human adaptability at least has a chance of keeping up with the rate of change in technology that currently is outpacing us. McKinsey did a great study, a very exhaustive study a couple years ago, where they looked across US jobs. They actually did this on a global basis. And they looked at each job, and then they actually broke it down into job activities, which activities are required to perform that job. And then they looked at a number of different technologies that exist today, sensor technologies, robotic technologies, data processing technologies. And then they made an estimate, not of how many jobs would be eliminated, but how many job activities could be automated using technology that exists today. And what they said was that 50% of jobs, not that they go away, 50% of jobs would be impacted by technology in the next 10 years using technology that exists today. So clearly this will have a big impact on the role that humans play. I found very interesting the lunchtime keynote that talked about robot-proofing humans so that we can figure out what kind of jobs humans are going to be doing in a world where robots and computers are doing a lot more of the production and value chains in the global economy. And this was a snapshot for the US, but if you look at what's happening on a global basis, the impact of technology on jobs is not going to be felt equally across all countries. It is happening differentially in different countries at a time when there's a different number of people entering the workforce on a global basis. So we've got 100 million new people entering the workforce in India in the next 10 years. And McKinsey estimates that 52% of the jobs in India will likely be impacted by technology. We have 60 million people entering the workforce in the next 10 years in China. 51% of jobs are likely to be impacted. And 40 million new people entering the workforce in Brazil, with about 50% of those today's jobs potentially being impacted by technology, and then 100 million in the rest of the world. But you can imagine if you're one of these countries and you want to make sure that your population is employed, you are looking at a world where the risk and the impact of technology is going to be much more severely felt than other countries where there might be fewer people entering the workforce or fewer jobs impacted by that. But I think I was just in India and met with a number of folks, including the Prime Minister. There is a level of agitation and concern in India that is extraordinary because they will have, on the one hand, they'll have the youngest working age population in the world, 950 million people. On the other hand, if they can't create enough jobs for those folks, that could be a real issue with respect to social stability. So it's really a very, very big issue. And that's kind of the bad news. When you add it all up, McKinsey believes that 375 million people will be impacted. They could be dislocated. It'll be tough for them potentially to get back into the workforce. That's kind of the bad news of technology. The good news of what's happening is that because of technology, the best education in the world is now available to pretty much everyone in the world. When I say everyone, I mean you have to be literate, you have to be, and this is something that we don't take for granted, but you have to have the ability to actually take advantage of a lot of the new types of educational services that are available to adults. It's not all in every language. We do have subtitles in over 40 languages, but for the most part, the level of access that has been created by 150 universities putting 2,600 courses online, almost all of them can be taken for free. If you don't take the assessments, you won't get the certificate. But the content is available pretty much for free for everyone in the world. And we're really bringing down the price of degrees, which I'll talk about in a moment. But technology really holds a huge amount of promise in making great education available to everyone. And in addition to the content, I think another big part of what we have at Coursera that we're very excited about is, it sounds silly, but it's the business model. It's the ability to use a platform to allow a world of, an ecosystem of learning partners find solutions to many different problems without us having to invent the solution for every problem. It's a little bit like what Airbnb has done with respect to lodging. They're not building all the different apartments and houses and everything else. They're simply matching people who want lodging with people who have lodging. We are simply matching people who want learning with people who can create learning. So if you think about this kind of an learning ecosystem, and Coursera is fairly unique in this respect, we really sit at the center of three key entities that we try to pull together and help collaborate. We've got 31 million learners, 78% of whom come out from outside the United States, who come to Coursera to learn and prosper. And the learning is really the ability to get access to education and to learn skills and knowledge that are relevant to employers who are employing folks and looking for those skills. We have 150 universities and now 21 industry partners. These are corporations who publish on Coursera. We have over 2,600 courses. And I'll talk a little bit about the degrees, but we had 4 degrees. We just announced another 6 degrees. And so the content that's being developed is expanding rapidly. And then on the enterprise side, we launched Coursera for Business a couple years ago. We now have over 1,000 companies who've hired Coursera to bring the content from our partners into the workplace to help their employees get those skills that they really need. And I mentioned at lunch, for those who were there, or for those who weren't there, that there seems to be, to my mind, a bit of a false dichotomy in this idea that, universities are over here and industries over here, and they're not talking and they're not collaborating, and it's this, you teach them when they're young and then they go to work and then the university totally doesn't teach them anymore. It's just not true. We now have 31 of the Fortune 500 offering university courses from Duke and Princeton and Yale at work on skills that these employers want to provide to their employees. With our degrees, we have companies hiring Coursera and our partners to offer master's degrees to employees at work who are taking real university master's programs in computer science. And so we have really helped to facilitate this collaboration between enterprise and universities, and we think that that's really one of the most promising features of this kind of a learning ecosystem. When you look at our learner base, we are reaching a world of learners. Our biggest population is North America, US plus Canada, followed by Asia, followed by Europe, and then you can see South America, Latin America, and Africa. And the growth rates are generally high. They're not equal among every country, but especially if you look at India, Russia, Mexico. And these are those kinds of economies, certainly India and Mexico, where there's a lot of younger people coming into the population looking for these types of skills. We're seeing the highest growth rates among registered learners in these emerging economies. When you look at the companies, they're pretty much spread across the whole world. We have over 1,000 in the last year. This has grown, not 25%, it's grown 25 times. There was a question again today at lunch where they said, well, what do you do if there's an employer who just kind of doesn't realize that they need to upskill their people? And my answer was, we move on. I mean, there are so many companies now realizing that the rate of change of their customers and competitors is moving faster than their organizational capacity to keep up with it, that the way that they learn and they help their employees learn is going to be key simply to keeping up. And of course, you could imagine that once your competitors start upskilling their people and you're not, you start getting worried that you're not going to be able to keep up in an industry that is accelerating. So we're seeing a huge growth rate in the enterprise channel, what we call the enterprise channel. There's a company called Pluralsight, just filed their S1 to go public a couple days ago. And they're all pretty much all enterprise driven. They're not university content. There are other types of content that they author. But there's a huge movement among companies to upskill their folks. And I'd say one of the reasons that Coursera is doing well is we're pretty distinctive in being the only ones who have university content that's being made available through the workplace for employees at work. And that kind of content is really resonating with these corporate customers. In terms of the learning products, I have on this axis credential value and then learning experience. We started with courses and with specializations, which are packages of courses. We charge generally $49, $50 for a course. We package these courses into usually 4 or 5 courses, and that's a specialization. It's a little bit more of a skills mastery chunk of content with a certificate at the end that says, you know, you finished this specialization. That is a subscription for about $49 a month. And that's kind of what most people think of as MOOCs. Anyone can come in. You can take it free if you don't want to get the certificate. If you want to get the certificate, you pay a little bit. We have also launched degrees. We had 4 degrees that have been out there for a couple years. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Like I said, we just announced 6 new degrees, including a master's degree in computer science from ASU. So we're super excited about that. And what we have found is that these courses are in smaller components, and a lot of other of our competitors are out there offering kind of more micro learning, and that's valuable for all those who have ever gone to YouTube or anything else to learn something quick. There will be learning experiences that take 5 minutes. There'll be learning experiences that take 2 or 3 years. The full range of experiences, I believe, will be very valid and important going forward. A reporter asked me this morning, she said, what's going to happen to degrees if micro-credentials, sort of there's a space, whoops, I don't want to do that just yet. There's a space between specializations and degrees where we're also experimenting with some credentials. She said, what's going to happen to degrees? Will they become irrelevant when these micro-credentials really take off? And I said, just my view of it, because the world is changing so quickly, and there's a huge economic value to keeping up with that change, learning will be valued and learning will be rewarded. And if learning is rewarded, then a lot more people are going to learn a lot more stuff. And what you need to learn and how you need to learn it and the credential that you get for learning is going to be different. It's not like, you know, it used to only be degrees and now there's no more degrees, or it was never micro-credentials and it's all micro-credentials. It's going to be a spectrum. There's going to be a lot more of every kind of credential. My belief is there'll be far more bachelor's degrees. My belief is there'll be far more master's degrees. These master's degrees will be far more specialized than they are today. And it reflects the absolute need for the world to learn more quickly. We have seen learners who want different types of learning products. So this is a young woman who is at UC Davis. She's getting a bachelor's degree in computer science. She stopped out for 2 years. She's taken Coursera data science courses. She's employed, and she said, Jeff, I might not go back and finish my degree. What I'm learning through these open specializations and the competencies I'm developing, I'm being rewarded for so much that the cost of me going back to college to learn things that might become obsolete seems to be very high. And she also said, I just really want the competencies at this point because I'm getting rewarded just for developing those skills. Of course, I encouraged her to go back and get the degree because that's also a highly differentiated credential. There's a gentleman in our MBA program with the University of Illinois who's getting an MBA. He said, my life dream was to get an MBA. And so he's not so interested in just the specializations. And there's a whole new world of intermediate credentials that I think will be important. And we have introduced sort of these degree modules, we call them master track certificates, that we're experimenting with now that are showing some promise. We have been doing a lot of content with respect to universities. We've also been supplementing that with content from industry partners. This is our best-selling specialization from our founder, Andrew Ng. It's on deep learning. Like the world, so many people want to learn deep learning. and it's kind of a sequel to machine learning. So we had a bunch of people come from one thing, the state of the art has advanced, Andrew came out with the next thing, a lot of people decided they want to learn the next thing. And I mentioned the Google IT Cert. This is something where someone with no college degree and no background in computers can go through a 8-month process, get a professional certificate, and we have hiring partnerships lined up on the back end. When we think about MOOCs, they create a huge amount of access and they become a gateway to online degrees. And I would like to show you a little bit about how we're thinking about these degrees. I won't read through all of them, but these are the ones that we've announced most recently. And I wanted to show you, because we're running out of time, we have 2.5 minutes, some of the statistics on our degree program. So the degrees are typically a third of the cost of what you'd have to pay if you're on campus. This includes, for instance, with the University of Illinois, it's the number 5 ranked computer science program in the country. That degree is like $22,000. And we're seeing over 90% retention rates. We've graduated our first class of MBAs. The MBAs now at University of Illinois, the online MBA cohort is larger than their on-campus cohort. And it's the exact same degree. So when you get your diploma, it comes from University of Illinois, and it looks indistinguishable to an employer. You're part of the alumni network. You get career services. You are fully a University of Illinois graduate. And it's interesting that 50% of the people who are in the degree program started off in a MOOC. So it really reduces the cost of acquisition, which allows us to really reduce the cost of tuition. So it's one of the reasons we can do this is not only the scalable learner servicing, but the really scalable acquisition of learners, because they're experimenting with MOOCs and they decide that they want to move on. And I'd like to just show you really quickly a video here that describes this experience.
In the data sciences that go unfilled each year. The MCSDS degree unlocks those career opportunities.
HEC is a management school. We want to be on the forefront of pedagogical innovation in management, and that's one of the main reasons we launched this program.
We wanted to do something that would democratize education and also to make a degree that was available for people to be able to work around their lives so they can continue to work, continue to raise families.
I've been wanting to get my MBA for quite some time and got 3 kids and a full-time job, and there just wasn't a way to get that all done before.
For me, being part of IMB is freedom from where I was trapped in. I was trapped in a locality in Afghanistan that didn't allow me to get a quality education.
I have a full-time job, so I couldn't go to campus. The cost and the flexibility and the material, you put all of this together, I think it's a phenomenal option.
One of the features that worked so well for me was how modular it is. Did the digital marketing specialization, and then they started taking applications for the IMBA, and I thought, I'll give it a shot.
I don't think I would be able to have finished any other program, because after giving birth, it was really super hard, and having something that's based on certificates in a modular structure make the entire difference for me.
Online education is not about you just sitting with your computer screen. You should feel that other people are present.
At first I thought that an online degree would not give me all the benefits of an in-campus degree, but they didn't let me feel that I'm in Afghanistan. One of the great parts of IMB is live sessions.
I was shocked at how much it felt as good or better than when I was sitting in class in my undergraduate days. The professor's right there looking into the camera. Everyone has their cameras on their computers. There's a chat feature, so you can also type in a question and the professor can answer your question that way.
Office hours are another opportunity to get beyond just sort of information transfer and into more of the coaching aspect.
I think the cool thing is that you can truly participate from wherever you are. These systems work on your desktop, on your cell phone, so it's device agnostic.
The main thing that we learn from the students is they value practice. You have to show how what you're talking about in the fundamentals and in the theory actually applies to the real world.
The assignments for the courses link up well with real world work. Like our programming assignments are done through GitHub and GitLab, just like you would at your actual job.
There are times where after watching a video, I get a spark or an idea how to solve a problem that I could immediately apply in a presentation or a conversation I'm having the next day.
I love that we did something really innovative here. It's making a big impact on the world. And we truly have made an exceptional education accessible to hundreds and hopefully someday thousands of people that otherwise wouldn't have been able to do it.
I was really looking, how am I going to take care of my daughter? And having her, it makes you want to be better than you are currently. It's allowed me to start a new job that I wouldn't have the skills or the confidence to do.
Getting my MBA makes me feel empowered because I don't need to stop being myself. I don't need to stop working. I don't need to stop being a mother. I don't need to stop having my life. And that is everything.
Thank you.